Hello, I'm Andy, a game developer and community manager at Unit 2 Games in Meta. In this series of videos, we're going to explore how mechanics, loops, and progression combine to create fulfilling and social worlds that players love. To start this series, we're going to look at the most fundamental building block of interaction, a mechanic. A mechanic is what the player does in the world from second to second. On mobile, mechanics include jumping, or shooting a spell, or turning a dial, feeding a cat, and loads of other things. It's the core functionality which enables players to interact with the world and other players. Mechanics can be a core part of the experience, such as in a game, or a secondary component that gives players a way to break the ice, such as in a hangout world. Mobile world mechanics are more limited than mechanics in VR. Mobile players don't have the range of control as VR players, and interacting with the object on a screen can be a little bit fiddly. So part of the challenge in building mobile worlds is identifying ways for mobile players to participate as embodied avatars. On mobile, simple mechanics are key. Mobile players need to get to the fun quickly, so they don't have time for complex rules or instructions, and players also don't have as many inputs or refined control as VR players. But all these challenges can be overcome with the right choice of mechanics and the right balance of depth. Some core functionality on mobile that makes a really good starting point for investigating mechanics includes locomotion by running and jumping with your avatar, shooting, in-world buttons and UI, and focused interactions which feel more mobile native, like tapping, flicking and dragging. As well as these, it's really worth investigating how you can support social mechanics that encourage players to interact with each other. We can break down devising mechanics into a few key areas that you can tackle in any order. Inspiration, blue sky thinking and brainstorming about all the different interactions and mechanics that you would like to build. Research, finding out what's possible and looking at what already works in other media and games. And constraints, which is all about cutting down those ideas to only those that meet the requirements of the project, both in terms of your time creation and the needs of your audience. Once you have some ideas for mechanics, it's worth prototyping one or all of them in combination and to start to feel what the experience might be like. This is a really fun moment and it's a great opportunity to experiment with what Horizon Worlds is capable of. Testing and improving can occur really quickly at this point, so stay open to what feels good when you're prototyping. If you find yourself wanting one more go or testing a mechanic longer than you spend tweaking it, you may have found a great mechanic. Consider putting a twist on an existing mechanic by changing the camera angle or forcing the player to move or reducing the amount of inputs that players have so that it's like one tap or one swipe to perform the same thing. Horizon Worlds is primarily a VR platform, but it's also available to mobile players. Our job as a creator is to consider all the different types of visitors that might come to our world from the start of our design. But how can we make mechanics that work in VR and on mobile? For this, we can evaluate and refine our mechanics in the following ways. We can look to emulate across platforms. Try to make sure the mechanic works correctly in both VR and on mobile from where it is at the moment. We could look at adapting, so making adjustments to the mechanic to balance it specifically for one platform. For example, reducing the inputs required to reload a gun on mobile. Or we could bifurcate, which means to separate the functionality completely for the different platforms and almost give quite a different experience on mobile and in VR. Social mechanics offer limitless variety as each game will be different depending on who's playing. That said, devising social mechanics can be quite tricky and difficult to test and refine with help from a group. Designing social mechanics is all about considering human motivation for interacting with each other, and one key motivation for us is that we all want to avoid peril. So that can be a really good starting point to find other social mechanics. Doing things like looking at conflict and rescue, mechanics which can drive conflict or result in conflict with others, usually have peril at their core and maybe offer opportunities for some people to rescue each other and build an emotional connection. Subterfuge, where is like where mechanics, where players are in conflict. Maybe there's specific player roles and they're working against each other, and some know and some don't. And maybe some players have certain objectives, other players have different objectives. But all of this usually has some kind of peril at the core. And then finally, time pressure is quite an easy way to add peril. Working against the clock in a team, it sounds tense, it sounds exciting. A word on teamwork though, and team-based mechanics. We need to ensure that games that rely on more than one person scale from one to many by including some solo mechanics that players can do while they're waiting for people to arrive or their friends to team up. And then some thought about teamwork versus individual skill and balancing those two things. We need to ensure that teamwork is always positively rewarded and is more likely to succeed. But we want to avoid 100% reliance on teammates. We need to ensure that bad teammates are always better than nothing, so they're always contributing even if they're not very good, and also make it difficult to spot when a teammate is playing poorly. Mobile players are less likely to communicate verbally in the world, but that doesn't mean they can't make meaningful connections with other players. Your world can offer mechanics that enable players to express themselves and use wearables or communicate non-verbally through things like releasing a balloon or shooting a confetti gun or any other kind of triggering of in-world objects. In this video, we've explored mechanics, which are a fundamental building block of worlds and games. We said the mechanics facilitate social interaction, either as an icebreaker or as a core part of the experience in a game. We explored ways to think about mechanics, either technically or as social mechanics or game rules, or through asymmetrical gameplay, where gameplay is different on different devices. We also looked at ways to devise and brainstorm mechanics. Once you have found one or more mechanics that you want to build on in your world, you can start to look at building these out into a core loop, which is what we're going to look at in the next video. I hope this has been helpful, and I look forward to seeing you in Horizon Worlds.